The phone rang at 3 a.m., and the first thing Dave said was, "I think my dad just died in an airport," which felt impossible until everything after proved it wasn't. I'm answering this because it still doesn't feel real, even now, and because once you hear the whole thing, you don't really forget it. Dave's my friend, quiet, observant, always the last guy to panic, which is why the way his hands shook when he told me stuck with me. He'd gotten a call from an overseas number, airport security, medical emergency, heart attack, pronounced dead before they even got him off the floor. No buildup, no warning, just gone. His sister, let's call her Olivia, took control immediately. Olivia's older, sharp as glass, the kind of woman who sounds calm even when she's furious, tall, blonde, always dressed like she's stepping out of a boardroom. She handled the calls, the logistics, the funeral home, because Dave couldn't even process what continent his dad had died on yet. That's when the first weird thing happened. The funeral home told Olivia they'd already begun arrangements with the deceased's wife. At first, everyone assumed it was a misunderstanding. Grief scrambling wires, a name written down wrong. But Olivia called her mother anyway. Her mom had no idea what she was talking about. She thought Olivia was arranging everything. She hadn't spoken to any funeral home. She hadn't authorized anything. Olivia called the funeral home back. They didn't back down. They confirmed arrangements were already in progress. They confirmed they had a wife on file. They confirmed a name, and it wasn't her mom's. That was the moment Olivia booked a flight. She flew from the UK to Houston, Texas, because that's where the funeral home was, and because this felt too deliberate to solve over the phone. When she got there, privacy laws became a brick wall. The funeral home refused to tell her who the woman was, where she lived, how she'd claimed her father. After days of pressure, paperwork, and sheer refusal to leave, Olivia got a meeting. And that's when the other family walked in. The woman, let's call her Rachel, looked just as stunned as Olivia, early 40s, carefully put together. Eyes darting like she was trying to solve a puzzle while being watched. She had 2 kids, a son and a daughter. About Dave's age, that's when the truth landed. Dave's dad had another family. Years long, split across 2 countries. 6 months here, 6 months there. Suddenly the missed holidays made sense, the half explanations. The Christmases he never came home for. Rachel hadn't known about the UK family either, not until that moment. 2 women staring at each other across a funeral home table, realizing the man they loved had been living 2 lives. They cried, they talked. They agreed to split the funeral costs, at least at first. Once planning started, nothing was right. The flowers were wrong. The food was wrong. The tone was wrong. Rachel insisted the funeral be in the US. She said her family should come first. The tension never dropped. It just hardened. When the funeral finally happened, it felt off, too controlled, too quiet. Like everyone was watching everyone else, and then the will came up. The UK family suggested a clean split. US assets stay US, UK assets stay UK, money split evenly. Rachel refused. She wanted everything. She said she'd take it to court, but the court case never happened. Because before anything could be filed, the cause of death changed, not natural. And suddenly, everything froze. Once the investigation started, time stopped behaving normally. Days stretched, nights collapsed, everything felt suspended, like the world was holding its breath and refusing to let it out. Every bank account tied to Dave's dad was frozen. Cards declined, automatic payments bounced. Even small things, like subscriptions, suddenly mattered because they proved how locked down everything was. Grief didn't get room to exist properly. There was no quiet mourning, no slow processing. Just forms, emails, legal language that stripped the humanity out of everything. Dave reacted by going silent, not dramatic silence. Not anger, just absence. He stopped talking about his dad altogether, stopped using his name. He'd sit on the edge of the couch scrolling through old photos like they belonged to someone else's family. Olivia went the other way. She became focused to the point of being unsettling. She started making timelines on paper, flights, holidays, the months his dad was supposedly away for work. Patterns started appearing, missed Christmases every other year. Birthdays he always sent gifts for but rarely attended. Long gaps that suddenly had explanations no one had wanted to see. And then there was Dave's mom. Let's call her Maggie, mid-50s. Dark hair threaded with gray she'd stopped fighting years ago. Always neatly dressed, even at home, like staying put together was a form of self-defense. She'd been with Dave's dad since she was young. Built routines around him, built a life that assumed honesty as a given. This shattered her in quieter ways. She slept in short bursts. She paced the house at night. She kept asking the same questions over and over, as if repetition might turn them into something safer. At some point, she said she needed answers, not comfort, not reassurance. Truth, that's when she hired a private investigator. She didn't announce it. She didn't ask permission. She just did it. The investigator didn't bring drama. He brought folders, travel logs, phone records. Insurance paperwork. He focused on timelines, not motives. Flights that didn't align cleanly, extended layovers that made no professional sense. Hotels booked under variations of the same name. Then the financial side started surfacing. Insurance policies adjusted months before the death. Beneficiaries changed quietly. Coverage amounts increased just enough to matter. Nothing illegal on its own, but together, it felt intentional. Like someone preparing for an ending. The police were informed, but movement was slow. Too many borders, too many laws. Too many reasons to hesitate. Waiting became unbearable. Waiting for updates, waiting for phone calls. Waiting to see who would make the first real mistake. Maggie couldn't take it anymore. She said she needed to speak to Rachel directly. Not to accuse, not to threaten, just to look her in the eye. Olivia begged her not to go alone. Dave looked terrified but couldn't bring himself to say it out loud. Maggie insisted she'd be fine. She said she trusted her instincts. The meeting itself was tense in a quiet way. Later, Maggie would say it felt wrong from the start. Too polite, too careful. Drinks were poured. Voices stayed calm. Smiles never reached eyes. Maggie asked about the funeral, about the will, about the months leading up to everything. Rachel deflected, changed subjects, kept control of the room. Nothing explosive happened. That almost made it worse. Maggie left unsettled. She got back into her car and started the drive home. She didn't make it far. Less than half an hour later, the call came. Single vehicle crash, medical emergency. They found her car off the road. Front end crumpled, no signs of braking. Doctors said her heart went into sudden arrhythmia while she was driving. They got her to the hospital just in time. She survived, barely. During routine testing, something else appeared. A substance in her bloodstream that shouldn't have been there. Trace amounts, not enough to register as an overdose. Enough to trigger cardiac failure. The same kind of anomaly that had quietly raised questions about Dave's dad's original cause of death. The hospital contacted the police immediately. This time, no one hesitated. When Olivia heard, she didn't cry. She sat down slowly, stared at the floor. Then she said, almost to herself, "This isn't random anymore." And that was the moment the story stopped being about secrets and started being about someone who didn't expect to get caught. After Maggie stabilized, the house filled with a different kind of fear. Not the shock kind, not the loud kind, the quiet, watchful kind. Police officers came and went at all hours. Different faces, same questions. What did Maggie drink? Where had she been? Who had she spoken to? Dave hovered near doorways whenever they arrived. Like if he stepped too far into the room, something else bad would happen. He barely slept. He barely ate. He kept replaying the phone call about his dad, like it was the start of everything breaking. Olivia handled the questions. She remembered everything, times, routes, exact words Maggie used before she left the house. The substance found in Maggie's blood hadn't been officially named to us yet. Just described in careful language, synthetic, fast-acting. Extremely difficult to detect unless you knew exactly what to test for. That description alone shifted the tone. This wasn't negligence. This wasn't bad luck. Someone had intended for a heart to stop. The investigation widened overnight, not just the death, the travel history. The finances, the will, the funeral home was contacted again. This time with warrants, records that had been private suddenly became evidence. Signatures, authorizations, early decisions that now looked rushed. Rachel's name appeared again and again. She'd signed first. She'd pushed hardest. She'd insisted on control early. Still, no one accused her outright. Timing mattered. Accusations without proof collapsed cases. The private investigator returned with another folder, thicker, heavier. Inside were receipts. Not dramatic ones, small purchases, separated by days. Amounts low enough to avoid attention, cleaning supplies, chemical components. Ingredients ordered through intermediaries, nothing illegal on its own. But together, they formed a pattern. He didn't say what the compound was. He just said, it matches the timeline. That phrase stuck, matches the timeline. Police contacted Rachel. She cooperated. At least on the surface, she sounded calm, offended. She said she was grieving. She said she felt targeted. She asked if this was about money. The officers didn't answer. Maggie woke up 2 days later, weak, disoriented, but clear enough to remember one thing, the drink. She said it tasted wrong, metallic, bitter. She hadn't finished it. She'd left Ollie because of it. That detail changed everything. It meant the dosage wasn't accidental. It meant whoever did it knew exactly how much was needed. Police moved quickly after that. Rachel's house was searched. Drawers emptied, cupboards photographed. They didn't find the substance itself. That worried everyone more than if they had. What they did find were receipts printed, filed, kept. Ingredients purchased months apart, stored carefully, too carefully. Rachel was brought in for questioning, not arrested, not yet. She claimed Maggie must have brought something with her. She said she'd been poisoned too. The claim didn't hold. The receipts didn't match Maggie, they matched Rachel. Then the toxicology report came back. The compound in Maggie's blood matched trace elements found during the second autopsy. Same mechanism, same outcome, cardiac failure without overdose markers. The room changed after that. No more soft voices, no more hedging. Rachel was arrested the next morning, charged with premeditated murder and attempted murder. Dave didn't react. He just sat down, like his body finally gave up after weeks of holding itself together. Maggie cried for the first time since the night of the call. Not loudly, not dramatically, just steady. The assets stayed frozen. Court dates were scheduled, statements prepared. Then Rachel's children reached out. They didn't defend her. They just asked what would happen to them. And that question lingered, because at that point, the damage was already done. And no one involved would walk away clean. By the time the court dates were set, nothing felt real anymore. It felt procedural, administrative, like the worst thing any of us had ever lived through had been reduced to folders and scheduled appearances. The assets stayed frozen while lawyers circled. Houses sat empty, accounts gathered interest no one could touch. Life insurance policies became numbers instead of lifelines. Dave watched it all from a distance. He went back to work because routine was easier than thinking. He answered questions with half sentences. He stopped correcting people when they said his dad's death was tragic. Maggie recovered physically faster than anyone expected. Emotionally, she didn't recover at all. She lost weight. She stopped wearing makeup. She stared through conversations like she was listening to something only she could hear. Olivia became the anchor. She spoke to lawyers. She answered police calls. She handled logistics like grief was just another project with deadlines. When Rachel appeared in court for the first time, none of us went. We didn't need to see her. The arrest photos were enough. She looked smaller, less controlled, like someone who'd spent too long believing she was smarter than consequences. The charges were read: premeditated murder, attempted murder. The courtroom went quiet in a way that felt heavy even through the news articles. That's when the rest started coming out. The investigators laid out the timeline. When Rachel had first discovered the UK family, how long she'd known. She'd found emails, travel receipts, proof that the man she married had another life. According to the prosecution, that discovery came months before the death. Long enough to plan, long enough to research, long enough to change insurance policies and beneficiaries. They explained the compound, a synthetic opioid-adjacent substance, stronger than anything commonly prescribed, designed to stop a heart without triggering classic overdose symptoms. Small amounts, nearly invisible, perfect for someone who wanted death to look natural. They said she'd administered it slowly, testing doses, watching reactions. That part made Maggie leave the room when her lawyer told her. The defense argued desperation. They said Rachel had been betrayed, humiliated, afraid of losing everything. They framed it as panic, but panic doesn't involve spreadsheets. Panic doesn't involve receipts saved for months. The jury didn't buy it, neither did the judge. Rachel was sentenced to life imprisonment, no parole. The ruling came down on a Wednesday morning. Dave was at work when Olivia called. He didn't cry. He didn't speak. He just sat on the floor of an empty conference room until someone noticed. With the case resolved, the asset freeze lifted. Lawyers presented options. Everything could legally go to the UK family. Every property, every account, every remaining policy. Maggie surprised everyone. She said no. She said the kids shouldn't lose their future because of their mother. She proposed the original split. U.S. assets stay with the U.S. family. UK assets stay with the UK family. Financial investments split evenly. The lawyers warned her. She was entitled to everything. Maggie didn't care. She said she'd already lost enough without becoming someone she didn't recognize. Rachel's children never met us. They sent a letter instead. Short, careful, thanking Maggie for what she'd done. Dave didn't read it. He said some things didn't need to be absorbed. Life moved forward in fragments. Holidays stayed strange. Birthdays stayed quiet. Every airport became uncomfortable. Every phone call from an unknown number made hearts race. Sometimes Dave talks about his dad like a stranger. Sometimes like a victim, never like a hero. The thing that messes with me the most is how close it all was to working. If Maggie had finished that drink, if she'd stayed 5 minutes longer, if doctors hadn't tested the right thing, this would have ended differently. It would have been labeled tragic, unfortunate, and the truth would have been buried with him. So yeah, that's the most insane thing I've ever witnessed, not because of the murder, but because of how quietly it almost passed for normal. And how many people would have believed it if it had?